Hello there guys, Daniel Childs here for a different rational perspective. I'm not at the SonOfChelsea studio this week, but I wanted to get something out regarding Chelsea and the end of the season. So we're out in the sun, I'm enjoying a morning coffee and like yesterday the season ended. It was almost July weather at Stamford Bridge, and at times, as it usually does at the end of the season, it feels a little bit like pre-season-ish with the way those kind of games can get a little bit weird, a little bit sloppy. But Chelsea got the job done, 2-1 Bournemouth. We saw one of the great goals of the season, arguably the goal of the season, from Moises Caicedo, who's had an incredible end to this season. And of course the tear-jerking, emotional farewell for Thiago Silva at Stamford Bridge, which I thought was perfectly done. Great tone to it. And it was lovely to hear from Thiago to say his goodbyes to Chelsea and for him to get that very fond farewell, which of course is rightly deserved. As I say, it's weird because when you look at a last game of the season, like, you naturally look at the whole season. You naturally reflect post-game on what the season was, your favourite moments, your worst moments, what kind of the feeling of the season was. I think that I feel from a Chelsea point of view, it's wonderful and quite a relief that we end the season feeling this positive, given how chaotic it has been for a lot of the year and how it felt like it could have just ended mid-table. I was seeing a graph that the Premier League put out of the positions of the Premier League clubs and the Premier League table from the start, and it had the lines going up and down. And it's amazing watching Chelsea basically effectively between 9th and 14th for most of the year, and then in the last 3 or 4 weeks we've gone up to 6th, and that's why the mood has drastically turned so quickly. That's why I think a lot of people find it quite confusing to judge this season, because for a lot of it was so up and down. And for some people who have been more positive than negative this season, the argument will be, well, that's what you got with a young squad, that's why it needed to take time, the injuries. I think those are all valid points of view, of course, and I think that's something we've always addressed when I've been talking about the team, but that isn't to say some of the performances and trends we've seen this season on and off the pitch haven't been concerning. So I think from a club point of view, it at the very least gives some form of a platform. You're back in European football. You've ended the season really positively. The attack looks so much better and is in so much of a healthier place than it was this time last year. And you've got a young group that clearly like the head coach. This is why I keep on saying with Pochettino. Like, for me, it's such an easy decision. You stick with Pochettino. For all those conversations about, is he the guy to lead us to a Premier League title? Is he the guy that in a Champions League semi-final situation is going to be the master tactician? I mean, we're not there yet, so that's a question for another day. But I think context matters, and I think that the current Chelsea era matters. If we're going to have a conversation about Chelsea from 2005, Chelsea from 2015, when we just won the Premier League title, yeah, sure, it's a different conversation, but that's not Chelsea right now. So I don't really see the point of acting like we're at, we want to be back at the top of the Premier League, but there also is making good decisions in the moment and making good decisions for what this current group right now needs. And this current group, I think, right now needs a bit of stability. I think it needs a coach that trusts them. I think they trust as well, and also I feel like won't throw them under the bus, and I think will have the patience that other coaches wouldn't. That's always the fear with other coaches, the likes of, say, Thomas Tuchel, Jose Mourinho, is that, and we've seen it so often, is that you bring in these coaches and how much tolerance would they have for the failures and frailties of this season? I don't think many, and I don't think many would have remained so publicly supportive and backing of their players. And I think that the off-field stuff where fans feel disconnected from the club, there's fears about, say, season ticket prices or the lack of communication. And the fact that the reality is, despite every time Todd Bowley does a conference or we get some quotes from the sporting director to the club, I mean, Pochettino, like at all top English clubs, it's kind of a big cultural thing here. is kind of the leading spokesperson. So you need someone in that role who, is going to back the players, and I think they value that. And then also, I think Pochettino has gotten more fiery. I think gotten more confident. I don't know if it gets to a point of like the point of no return after Arsenal race. Like, well, I'm just going to do things my way. And to be fair, in a similar way, it kind of paralleled what happened at Spurs. I know we've got away from talking about the game. I mean, quick reflections on the game. Yeah, Moises Caicedo, insane goal. What a player. So happy for him, because all season people have been talking about that price tag and, whether it's a complete waste of money. But, even before this last couple of games for Caicedo and that goal, like, I think you have to find, it's a stretch to say he's been a failure. I think you would be fair in pointing out that he has had to adapt to things at Chelsea, and it hasn't been the most stable situation, but his individual performances have gone like that throughout the season. There's no arguing around it. I mean, if you are arguing it, I just don't think you've watched that many Chelsea games. I think if you've been watching Chelsea games all season, you've seen his influence grow, you've seen his confidence grow, his passing has gotten so much more effective and influential. Of course, the broader discussion about Enzo Fernandez is one that I'm sure will rumble on now for the whole of the summer. But I just think for an individual, for a player that we required last year, and for him to be a part of a season end that was really positive, and to score that goal, which was, one of the best goals I've seen live at the Bridge. Lovely. Sterling too. I mean, Sterling, I think, scored a really nice individual goal, even though I think the keeper should have done better with it. Weird game for Sterling again, where he is still one of those players that divides opinion, I think, inside Stamford Bridge, and I think he does things during the game that frustrate you. I think his future is going to be an interesting one this summer, given those wages, given what a club in, say, Saudi may offer him. Whether Sterling would take that up, I'm not sure, but it's that may open the door for the players coming in the future at Chelsea in the attack, but then also just maybe for him it's a time to move on. But you have just lost Thiago Silva, so I think maybe Poch will be arguing, well, if you're not going to bring me any more Premier League experience, I'd like to keep Sterling around. So we'll see what happens there. I thought the second half was quite, and actually there were periods of the game where Chelsea looked like they were awaiting the final whistle. They looked like they had kind of run out of legs, despite the injuries helping us a bit. Poch has still been relying on 14 or so players for the last few weeks, and those players have run a lot, they've given a lot. And Bournemouth too are a decent team, and they, I think, tried their best. I think what was so symbolic was, Conor Gallagher right at the end, literally sprinting from one end of the pitch to the next to get a key block in that eventually leads to a Bournemouth sitter that effectively ends the game and Chelsea win it. So, more symbolism there with him and Chalobah again, who've been so integral in recent weeks. Gallagher for more of the season, but especially Chalobah. Again, just simple decisions. You don't let players like that walk out the door, because when you're trying to build a coherent, effective, strong, resilient squad, those players are valuable, I think, for a majority of coaches, and I think it's important that Chelsea keep those. It's a platform to build on, and I think the club would be stupid to rush out, spend another 100 million on some players that we don't really need. I think the priorities is an older profile player. I don't mean like 30, I mean prime players if you can sign them, but still, as I've said before, the quality of this squad is hard to gauge because we've had so many injuries throughout it. So yeah, we can relax into the summer. I'm intrigued to see what happens with Poch. I think we're asking for trouble if we sack him. I just think it's a very obvious choice. I mean, we've won, 8 of our last 10 games. The form since Boxing Day, specifically in the Premier League, has been hard to argue against. The players like him were playing good football, and I'm interested to see what would happen next season. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours, and I'll be back in the SonOfChelsea studio for some more end-of-season content. All the best.